So I'm going to show you how to do two variable analysis when one of the variables is qualitative and the other one is quantitative. So I can't create a scatter plot because I don't have a quantitative variable to put on one of the axes. So I have to use a different strategy for determining if there's a relationship between the two variables. So the question I'm going to try to answer is there a relationship between the handedness of a person, so whether they're left or right-handed, and their reaction time. And the data that I'm using is from a census at school survey that I always have my in-class data management students fill this out. And this is just sample data that's been taken from random students from Ontario. So these are not necessarily our students. And so the two variables that I'm going to look at are hand coordinates, which is whether you're left or right-handed here, and the reaction time. So there's a little reaction timer kind of game that the students do, and they have to react when they see a light come on, and then it measures how long it took them to react. So I want to see if left-handed or right-handed people are faster or slower with the reaction time in general, or if there's really no relationship between those two things. So what I have set up here to do the analysis is what's called a contingency table. So the table is going to show, it's splitting up my qualitative variable into the two categories. In this case, there's only left-handed and right-handed. And then the end value is going to be how many in my sample fall into each of those categories. And then my next column shows the mean reaction time. So I'm going to calculate, I'm going to use the spreadsheet to calculate the average reaction time for the left-handed people and for the right-handed people. So going back to my spreadsheet, I'll show you how to go about doing that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to sort my data using my qualitative variable. So I want to get all the right-handed people together and all the left-handed people together. That way I'm not sort of going through one by one and sort of pulling out the data individually. So in order to sort the whole data set, I just click in this top left corner just above where it says the 1. So I click there in the top left and it highlights the whole data set. And then I'm going to click on Data and Sort Range. I click on Data has a header row because that you'll see that changes from being column A to being province. So it looks at actually the names that are across the first row of the spreadsheet. And then I click down and I'm going to sort this by hand coordinates. And what that will do, I click sort, is it will put all the left-handed people together and all the right-handed people. So something I noticed right away is that there are quite a few more right-handed people in my sample than left-handed, but that's probably proportional to the general population. So I'm not too concerned that I have sampling bias because I haven't properly sampled my population. This is probably what it should be. So the first thing I want to do is see how many left-handed and how many right-handed people are in my sample. So in order to do that, I'm just going to click and highlight the left-handed people, and down here in the bottom right corner you can see it says count and 6. So I could just count it, but when my data set is bigger it would take longer to do that. So there are 6 people in my sample who are left-handed, so I'm just going to go back here to my contingency table and put in 6, and then I'll go back to my spreadsheet and highlight all the right-handed people and get my count being 22. So I'm just going to add in 22 for the right-handed people. Okay, now to get my average reaction time for each of those groups. So I want to highlight the reaction times just for the left-handed people. So I'm just going to click and drag to highlight those 6 reaction times. And now down here in the right-hand corner you can see it tells me the sum. So that's the total of all those reaction times. But if I click here, it will also give me other options. So it gives me the average of 0.703. And so I'm going to go back to my table and put 0.703 as the average reaction time for the left-handed people. And then I'll do the same thing for the right-handed people. Click and drag. And I get that the average reaction time is 0.805. 0.805 as the reaction time for the right-handed people. So the next thing I want to do is I want to look at this and say, okay, is that a significant enough difference to say that there's a relationship between these two variables, that yes, left-handed people or yes, right-handed people have better or worse reaction times, or is there not really a relationship between those two? And if I look at the data and I see kind of the range of values, there's quite a range of values all the way from like 0.3 seconds all the way up to a few people have like 3 seconds and 5 seconds. So having a difference of 1/10 of a second in this case is probably not significant enough to say that there would be a relationship between those two things. So I would say, according to the data, there is no relationship between handedness and say that they're similar in value. So that's how you use a contingency table to do two variable analysis when one of your variables is qualitative.